Hi, I'm Matt Ryan, host and moderated by Matt on YouTube. I'm so thrilled that we're here to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Star Wars Force Awakens. A little freaked out, it's been 10 years.
You're telling me.
Our guest has extensive credit as an editor, Alias, Mission Impossible 3, Star Trek Into Darkness, also the animated films How to Train Your Dragon and Kung Fu Panda 2, and of course, Episode 7 and Episode 9, Rise of Skywalker. So I'm so excited we're about to learn how she used the Force in editing process. So please welcome editor Maryann Brandon. You have a great working relationship with J.J. Abrams.
True.
What was your reaction when you found out he was bringing the Force back and he needed your Jedi Master skills in editing?
Well, obviously I was thrilled, but first he told us he wasn't going to do it. He said, I know you're going to hear rumors that I'm doing Star Wars. I'm not doing it, so don't get excited. And I was like, okay. And then I took another job on a Marvel film. And then a week later he said, I changed my mind, I'm going to do Star Wars. And then I had to call Marvel and be like, and then hear them tell me, you'll never work with Marvel ever again. Not that I worked with them once, but anyway, it was amazing. I mean, who'd have thought? I was a huge Star Wars fan when I was growing up. I remember the long lines in New York to go see Empire Strikes Back. And I would never have ever thought, okay, I'm gonna cut a Star Wars film. What was great though was I knew Star Wars so well. I'd showed it to my kids over and over. As JJ is a big Star Wars fan. My co-editor was not a Star Wars fan, so that was very interesting. I mean, that wasn't her cup of tea. So it was very interesting that, back and forth.
It might have helped, though, a little balance, where you can kind of, you had very strong opinions because you loved the series, and she can be a little more objective because she doesn't.
No, the total balance in the Force, yeah. No, it was great. I mean, we got along great anyway. We had a shorthand with each other, with him, we had a great working relationship. I'm very, very lucky.
All right, so you're excited about Star Wars, but then you read the script and realize, we got to pull this off. There's a lot at stake. What were your initial fears, reactions to the script, and what were you worried about going in?
Yeah, I mean, could be true of any script I read going in and could be true of any project that I get onto. It's like, okay, there's the word on the page and then there's what it's going to look like. And, I had just finished, I guess I'd done Star Trek and Mission Impossible. So it's nice to have that kind of relationship where you just trust this person. And, Larry Kasdan also was a writer on so he had written Empire, and I think he had
Return of the Jedi.
Return of the Jedi. And so, I mean, could I feel like we were in more competent hands? I mean, of course, we were nervous, but incredibly excited to, we all moved to England with the sets were incredible, and I had, nieces and nephews that came to the set and, nearly had a heart attack because they were standing on the Millennium Falcon, and then we'd walk 3 sets over and there was the outside of the Millennium Falcon and they were like, what do you mean it's not one thing? No, it was incredible.
Well, and that's one of the things, like JJ, he likes practical sets more. So it must be, having those real sets helps the actors, helps the director, and helps you as the editor.
I love it. And I mean, of course, there's a lot of scenes when when they steal the Millennium Falcon in the beginning of the film, and it's a lot of green screen, and it's a lot of and you have to imagine it and fill in the blanks. And one of the great things about the project was we had such a tight crew. I worked very closely with the visual effects people, so anything I could make up in my mind, I could have a conversation about and say, hey, what if, we put some giant sand dune here, like, or if I found a plate I like, could we make it work? And, there were just a lot of really talented people on that film, and I'd be really lucky to ever work with any of them again.
All right, so we'll talk a little editing and some sequences. One of the things, well, I don't say I love this part because the Empire is pretty evil in this movie, the First Order.
Right.
But I was impressed that the decision that you showed the Empire in a way we haven't seen before. They commit genocide, they wipe out a village, and we actually see it.
Right.
That was a very interesting choice to show, because the Empire's always been dark where they blow up a planet, but we never actually see the cost. That was the interesting thing. What was the decision kind of opening with a little darker, almost grittier?
I think, well, we had if I'm remembering correctly, we had a couple of different opening ideas. There was, at one point, we were toying with the fabled Luke's lightsaber falling through space, I believe. And in the end, it was really important to start the film with, I love those shots where the stormtroopers are just in the light, and you see them lined up, and they're just army, they're almost like clones, but they're real people. And I think it was important to start with that sequence because that we had to get the Finn story started, and you've never seen a stormtrooper take off their helmet before either. And I think these are the things that JJ and Larry came up with that were so relevant to the times we live in, and relevant to, breaking order with the First Order, and starting a film off with all these, the unlikeliest of people coming together. And trying to not go, just to start off more realistically with an impact than start with the sort of lore of, Star Wars. And that's why we kind of stayed away from the Luke lightsaber idea and brought it in later in the film, which I thought, when it comes in, it's perfect where it comes in.
That's actually the thing I was thinking about, because Finn, if we didn't see how horrible it was, your great edited shot of Finn looking at Kylo Ren in horror.
Yeah.
Like that moment where we buy that he's leaving the First Order, someone's actually a stormtrooper, a Nazi really giving up.
Right, like he just couldn't do it. Like when his friend dies and puts blood on his, that was a huge discussion. Should we have blood on his helmet? Shouldn't we have blood on his helmet? And how would it be? And, it was just, I think the one thing about JJ is a lot of his work is sci-fi or fantastical, but it's always based in reality and relationships. And so, if you look at his Mission Impossible 3, it's the first time Ethan Hunt has had a real, he's about to get married. He's having a real relationship. I think with Star Wars, The Force Awakens, he really wanted to make, real relationships and friendships land. And I think that's what the original Star Wars did when, Han Solo meets Luke and they become friends, and then the robots, even though they're robots, they're really friends. And it's so interesting why Star Wars stays relevant. And I think it's that very thing, that it's the adventure and the friendships. I really do. Yeah. I hadn't seen Force Awakens. I watched it to do this panel, and oh my God, it was utterly delightful. I have to say, I made my assistant at work watch it with me. I was like, come on, I'm going to go watch The Force Awakens. She's like, okay. And they were just, it was, oh my God, it was so special.
For me, it recaptured the feeling I had watching the original trilogy.
Yeah.
But it also didn't feel like a carbon copy, which I liked. You kind of went in a new direction. Like we just talked about a darker Empire, Finn, and that was kind of interesting, but you also honored. Is that something you would think about? We want to honor the original?
Oh, we definitely wanted to honor the original. As you can imagine, there were a lot of eyes on the film. I know you're going to find that hard to believe, but there were so many people who wanted to have a say.
All right, so Oscar Isaac was great, Poe. I kind of felt you were setting him up to die when the ship got swallowed by the sand. What were your thoughts on Poe and the decision of whether or not to kill Poe off, which I heard was a rumor that there were just talks about killing Poe off early.
You know, I never heard that rumor. I actually never heard that. I mean, Poe is the original, you know, X-Wing fighter. He's your guy. He's, you know, I can't imagine how the film would have worked if he didn't come back in that, you know, when they're at Maz's castle and he wasn't flying his black X-Wing. It's such a great moment. And there was a lot of discussion about whether Finn should say, that guy's one hell of a pilot. But John Williams wrote such an amazing score at that moment. I mean, that when the rebel fighters come in, the music there is absolutely spot on. I mean, I'm so lucky to have worked with him because that guy's a genius. I know it's been said before, but honestly.
So as an editor, future editors, you recommend always work with John Williams' score?
If you can. I mean, it was funny, too, because I realized when I was trying to put John Williams' music to Force Awakens, it wasn't that easy. Like, of course, the Darth Vader theme and those themes were easy, but it wasn't that easy because the way he writes, which I think is fascinating, he kind of writes what writers do with words, he does with music. So the music, it's like so particular to every moment in the scene. And it's like, you don't even realize it's happening until you try to put that music to some other scene, because it'll go wrong no matter what.
All right, so we're going to talk about the opening sequence of Rey. I like the homage original, kind of like she's trapped on a desert world, like Luke looking for the stars. But there's no dialogue. It was really a nice edited sequence, introducing a new Jedi, a whole new character without dialogue. That must have been a kind of an interesting process for the editing standpoint, not relying on dialogue to create a whole character.
Where John Williams comes in. Again, amazing music. Rey's theme is also so beautiful. I mean, honestly, sometimes I would just listen to the themes and be like, how does this guy do it? But, I mean, she's lonely. She doesn't talk to anyone. So she doesn't even have a droid until BB-8 shows up. And, you know, Daisy Ridley, I honestly never seen someone throw themselves in a part so fully. She was so committed to it. And I don't think you would have believed it if she was humming or whistling. She just is, and you know, she plays that part so well.
Now, a lot of time editors don't have relationship with actors in the sense where it's a separate, but if I'm not mistaken, Daisy and you communicated during the shooting of Force Awakens.
You know, for me as an editor, I really like going to the set, and tend to get very involved in the filmmaking. So I even on episode 9, I actually set my cutting room up on the set so I could be there while, you know, when there would be a break, JJ would come and work with me. We'd work out visual effects sequences. We'd work out if we needed extra shots, we could get them right then and there. And I think because it was a very young cast, it was, they were really open to it. And it was funny because, so you know, it's that weird thing where like, I know them, but they don't know me. So like, I'm like, hey, friend, and they're like, so, and then JJ was like, he was adamant that I not show any footage to the actors. And I was like, no, of course, I would never. And then, of course, he just started bringing, you know, hey, Oscar, come here, what do you think? Hey, you know, I'd be cutting and turn around, and Kylo Ren would be sitting right behind me. I'd be like, oh, my God, you know. And then it's funny, 3 years ago, I was working I sort of fix films a lot now, and I was working at Sony, and I get this call from this number, and I don't recognize it, so I just hang up. I don't answer it, and then I get a text, and it's like, hey, it's me, Adam. Can you call me back? And I'm like, on top of a mountain in Lake Tahoe skiing with my kids. And I'm like, Adam who? And he's like, driver. I'm like, oh, okay. And I call him back and he's like, hey, Maryann, how's you doing? I'm like, fine. And then he's like, can you, I have this film and I need your help and, you know, we're friends, like, can you do it? And I was like, yes, I guess. It was a Sony film. I was like, okay. And then he flew out and I worked with him for a year after that. So it was like, pays off when you make friends with the actors.
So you weren't, you weren't freaked out as Sith Lord was overseeing your editing.
I was very freaked out about the Sith Lord over my shoulder.
Watching your editing, giving you notes like a studio executive.
I was like, dude, take the helmet off. Do me a favor. You're freaking me out.
It's interesting though, because it sounds like he was interested. I know he's been interested in directing. In some ways, he wanted to learn.
Oh no,
Yeah,
he definitely has an opinion about everything. And this other film we did, he had this whole idea about it, and I had to go through this whole thing before I could convince him to go a different direction. But it was an interesting experience. But yes, look, I find that look, actors are out there. They're in front of the camera. It's all about, like, my job is to make them look good. And I take it very seriously because, I can hide behind the camera. I can hide in my little cutting room, but, they can't. So I do tend to listen. And, yeah, it was just a great, honestly, every one of those cast members were just awesome.
Let's talk a little Adam. Adam Driver had a great opening where, we had Darth Vader's mask. Again, with John Williams' music was beautiful.
Oh yeah, the Darth Vader mask.
Yeah, but it must be difficult editing and shooting. You have a character behind a mask trying to establish, you want characters to have expressions and other things to do. How hard is it to kind of open up a character who's masked and hidden, but you got to make him intense and scary?
Thank you, John Williams. With a lot of, tense camera work and some great music and some, it's interesting because there was a version where we unmasked Kylo Ren earlier in the film, and we realized that was a huge mistake, that he really needed to stay masked until, when does he take off his mask now? Is that in that scene?
I think at Han.
At Han, right?
I think Han Solo.
Yeah.
No, he does it with Rey.
Oh, Rey, when he's interviewing Rey, and it was until
right.
then, because she challenges him, and she says,
Yeah.
I don't feel I'm a guest of evil men in a mask.
Right, it's hard to feel intimidated when you're intimidated.
By a guy in a mask.
When you're intimidated by a creature in a mask.
Right.
And then he takes it off, and
And you're
it's
like-
the radar technician.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yes,
That's
exactly.
good. No, thank you.
But it's exactly, it had to wait till then, and you learn those things along the way. Like if we had there was one point we were talking about unmasking him the first time they go and see Snoke when he's standing there with, Hut. We just realized it was a mistake. We had to and also Adam's voice and the way his body moves. He's got that big hulking thing, and then that whole scene when he tears up the console, which is such a great homage to Darth Vader. He's, it's like kudos to him for acting in a mask, I gotta say.
It was my favorite moment where Kylo tears up the thing and the stormtrooper just walk away. Like, oh, we're not touching that. They showed them a little more zoom. It's like, hey, we're not going to go near this
Right.
crazy guy because we know he has the Force thing. He's going to kill us.
Yeah. No, that was one of the things, like just to give it that, we were very, very aware of giving the film humor. And obviously in every Star Wars film, humor is a giant, addition.
So I'm going to talk the most important moment, most exciting was Han and Chewie returning to the Millennium Falcon.
Yes.
Yeah, that was. So what was your thoughts when you first saw the dailies of that? And what was the decision of how early to bring Han in? Because I'm sure people said Han Solo should be in earlier. When was there any kind of when?
Well, she had to get the Millennium Falcon to there, and no, that's when he was always going to come in that scene, and that was the famous terrible day when the door crushed his leg and we had to shut down for like 4 or 5 weeks. Thank God he was okay, because it was a very heavy door on a, it was electronically operated, and it was terrible. But, so we had to go back, and like that was shot in 2 parts, because he was, before he got hurt, and then post he got hurt, and he was, he was amazing. But it was just great. I just love the way he comes in with the gun. I mean, that's right out of an old Han Solo pose, yeah.
Now, I don't recommend to young filmmakers injuring your star to shut down production for 6 weeks, but it in some ways, how did that adjust? Did that help you guys maybe
No, it's great.
story-wise and give you time to rethink things, or did it actually, I don't want to say help because Harrison Ford was
Well,
hurt.
no, it was, yeah, I mean, it was horrible. And he wasn't the only one who got hurt. JJ actually got hurt trying to hold the door open off of him until they could get the mechanics. So, other people were hurt as well. So, it was just, not a good thing. But for us, it wasn't a bad thing, because we, got to reassess everything we shot and go over everything and rejigger and maybe stage it a little bit differently. I can't remember exactly how we did it, but there was a lot of discussion about, the logistics of they were going to, Ray and Finn were going to release toxic gas, but then we were like, oh, that's so complicated. We can't, let's just keep it simple. And so we revamped it a little bit. And no, it was, whenever you have time in a film to take a break in the middle, it's a luxury, because you can see what you've done, see where you're coming from, and see, a little more clearly where you're going.
All right, well, the other key moment is Han and Leia finally getting together after 30 or so years. We finally see him. We've all been dreaming what it was like. What were your thoughts on that moment, like shaping that scene, and kind of when Carrie Fisher and Harrison
It was
Ford
a
together?
big deal. She was so nervous. I remember Carrie saying, talking to me, she thought, do I look good? And I'm like, Carrie, you look beautiful. You're Princess Leia. Yeah, it was just, we had to get it right. That was the thing. There's so many moments in this film that we had to get right. And, I'm not sure we were successful with every single one of them, but, that was just one. I mean, introduction of Chewie and Han back in, Han seeing Leia, when do you wake up R2-D2, Han death. That was a big deal to keep under wraps for a long time. Bless you. Yeah, I mean, it was just like every other scene. It just had to be great. And I felt when I was working on it, I really tried a lot of things, because, CPO is like in between them, and he's trying to get attention. And so it was tricky timing. And, but like the whole film, just, it was a lot of pressure. And I felt I wanted to get it right. It was really important to me.
Now, we did show the clip of Han Solo killing him. Like, how hard was that?
It was, we must have recut it 1,000 times in 1,000 different ways, and tried it out. Sometimes one of the thing is in a film like this, however you do it, it's going to be okay, because ultimately the moment is so shocking and horrible anyway. So I don't know that the editing, I mean, we fussed and fretted and tore our hair out over it, but again, I'm not sure, you could have shot it in one shot and it would have been just as horrible and so sort of shocking. So I don't know, like editorially, we were just nervous about getting it wrong, and that's why we did so many versions. But I love it. I think Harrison Ford he wanted that scene so badly, and he nailed it. You know, he was just gonna, that was his scene.
I do say the touch with him touching Kylo's face.
Oh, yeah.
I think I could tend helped with the Rise of Skywalker trying to redeem him. Without that moment, I don't think we would have a hard time ever believing Kylo returning back if Harrison did not do that moment.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that was his idea. He wanted to do it. That's what I said. He knew, Harrison knew the scene he wanted to play. And you know, you gotta give over to that guy. I think he knows his stuff.
Now we have the great climax of classic Star Wars battle. We have your space battle, editing with Kylo and Rey fighting. How was that kind of editing a classic Star Wars, mixing space and
It was a
lightsaber?
lot.
I mean, there were more sequences there that we didn't act. There was like a whole snow chaser, like they're in pods and they're chasing each other. Stormtroopers are chasing them, Rey and Finn, through the snow and shooting at them and blasting at them. I mean, we just had to cut. It was long and there was a lot, so we had to. You'd watch it now if we put all that back in. And there was a lot, you know, so many visual effects. We start, you know, you kind of realize, you know, this is a $2 million sequence, and we have, you know, $500,000. So you kind of, sometimes it's about that, and sometimes it's just like showing what the important thing is. But I feel like we reached a good balance. I mean, because you're really, I mean, it's the fight in the woods that you're into, like that moment when Kylo Ren's trying to call the lightsaber, and then you know, it goes by him. That's such a cool that to me is like one of my favorite moments in the film, when he can't believe, like, he just does such a great job, and then, you know, it goes to her. It's so awesome.
Well, and it's a great establishing of Rey. I mean, it was a perfect moment of the film, and you know, it almost a passing the torch moment.
Yeah,
it's like
because
now
you
she's
think-
ready to be the next Jedi.
Right, but Finn is using Finn can use it too. Like, it's, you know, nobody, it's like, wait, is he a Jedi? I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, JJ does have a tendency with his trailers to trick people. 'Cause they definitely set up with Finn. I read in Star Trek, he never gave away Khan was the villain. Like, JJ likes to mess with people's heads with trailers.
Oh, for sure, for sure. JJ likes empty spaces in trailers. So, like, there's an empty, you know, it's sort of his thing about, like, you can only imagine. He's not going to show you what's in the magic box. He's only going to say there's a box and it has magic things in it.
The final conflict, obviously, Rey and Kylo is great, but the climactic moment is almost a meditation moment where Rey is meditating in the Force and discovering the Force. How hard is that to edit something where your big moment is a meditation?
That was hard. We were I mean, when I watched it again, I was like, did we stay one shot too long? Because I don't think that Adam had, you know, I think he was struggling a little bit to stay, I mean, not to stay in it, but like, I didn't know if we, you know, I don't know, it works.
Well, Rey delivers in that scene. Like,
She totally
you go
delivers.
from someone who's been angry, she was very angry,
Yeah.
and very upset, to accepting the Force, and it was all in her face within only like 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just like, she totally, that's the sign of a great actress. I mean, yeah.
I love Daisy. I mean, I'm a huge fan.
Speaking of Daisy, I did speak to her people and her. She was going to record a message for us, but she was trapped in production. But she did want to say hi to you and, you know, and say hi to all
That's
of
very
you. She
sweet.
really wanted to try to do something, but she was unable to, you know, because she's
She's-
off in production.
I know. Well, good for her.
Yeah, it was-
She's lovely.
Yeah.
She's a lovely person. It's nice to know that she's an actually lovely person and a great actress.
All right, so a great moment with Luke at the end, of course.
Of course.
What were the thought processes on when to bring Luke in, or was that enough, or was anything like you always landed on that moment where we were just going to show Luke?
It was always in the script that way,
Oh.
and I think, well, he's in one other scene, but you don't see him really. He's in her dream sequence. But I think Luke would have liked to be in the film earlier. I'm guessing. I'm guessing that would be his choice. But I think it worked. I mean, that was one of the themes of the film. They were trying to build up the Rebel Alliance. And if you had Luke in the film earlier, then you lose, then what is Leia looking for? I mean, that was the whole theme of the film, like, to try and build back.
And what good would, I mean, then you're not establishing Rey.
Right, and then it would
Why
have-
doesn't Luke just take out Snoke and Kylo because he's Luke Skywalker?
Right. It just, I don't know where else you could have put him. I mean, it wouldn't, it just, yeah.
And the movie was Han's movie. If you're talking about the veterans, like the classic, it was
Well,
mostly
Han-
Han was the older veteran. You know, the one-
Yes, but Han is a smuggler. I mean,
Yeah.
he's not, Luke is like, a defender of the Force and a Jedi, but Han was never that. Han was always a sort of scoundrel, charming, but a scoundrel.
All right, so obviously the tragic death of Carrie Fisher going into Rise of Skywalker, you had to craft a storyline with past footage. What
Yeah.
were the challenges of kind of like
That was
having to rebuild a story with tragic, with Leia?
That's very challenging. I would not recommend it to anyone. But JJ felt very strongly that Carrie, he could not end the trilogy without Leia, and he managed to do it. And we worked very hard to get the right moments, and we basically used most of this footage, I think all of it was from, anytime you saw her, it was from episode 7. Yeah.
And then, so then you also had the challenge of connecting Kylo and Rey, paying off that. What were the challenges of kind of paying off his redemption and their relationship in Rise of Skywalker?
Oh, in the Rise of
Yeah, yeah,
Skywalker. Oh, that was, yeah. Well, that was the whole big controversy, right? Should they kiss at the end? Should they not kiss at the end? I'm a romantic, so I really wanted the kiss, so I worked very hard and I convinced a lot of people to put it in. Whether I'm right or wrong, I don't know, but I just felt he's gonna die. I mean, you gotta go the extra, but that's me. So that was my, I was really for it. Everyone had an opinion. No, yes, no, yes. I honestly think I cut 15 different versions of it. And, it was one of the things I was most kind of verbose about. Like, I just felt like it had to go that far. Because there was so much stuff that happened. I mean, we blew up this giant Coliseum. She was dead, then she's alive. It's like, come on, give us a kiss.
Well, and one of my favorite parts was the Emperor is one of the greatest villains of all time. We love Darth Vader, but I just remember Return of the Jedi, like, there's someone worse than him.
I know, he's terrible.
But he's such a powerful voice. What was it like kind of bringing his character back to life and, his great villainy?
Yeah, it was really fun. So much fun. We wrote really, really horrible lines for him. We kept trying out really nastiness when he's torturing Rey in that place. Honestly, it's like being a kid in a candy shop. It was like, anything you asked him to say, he said it like, okay, that was great. Now can you say this? And then he'd say it, and you'd be like, oh my God, that was great. So we were really blessed with having, amazing choices.
I did like the homage, episode 7, where Rey, gets a lightsaber over Kylo Ren. I think one of my favorite moments of Rise of Skywalker is when Rey gives Ben this lightsaber. That Force thing.
Oh, yeah.
That was just like, it was also, we know from the Star Wars folklore that people had that ability. But what was that? Was that kind of like, you want to pay it off, or was it to kind of?
Oh, no, that was always we wanted to do that. I love, that moment gives me chills when they're together and they're gonna fight together,
And he's Ben Solo.
And now he's Ben. And that's, that's the redemption for Han. Unfortunately, he never got to see his mom again, but,
Well, and-
yeah.
Oh, well, I don't know how much you can give away. Were there plans originally before Carrie died to, Leia and Kylo having interaction?
I don't know the answer to that question. I don't think the script was that developed before she died. I think they were still in post on 8, and it was, JJ had no intention of directing episode 9, so I wasn't involved at all. I mean, it was, unfortunately, I truly believe he should have directed all 3 of them. And, yeah, I wish. I really do. I think they would have been utter genius, but he didn't want to do, I remember when Rian Johnson came and we met him and he was like, I'm going to do 8, do you have any advice? And the only thing I could think to say was, when in doubt, cut to BB-8.
And it worked.
Yeah, he's, funny enough, he lives in my neighborhood and I ran into him a year or 2 ago and he goes, that was the best advice ever.
I had to say, though, the scene, obviously Leia, dying was tragic in the film, was beautifully done, but the Harrison Ford moment with Adam Driver was probably the
when
best
he-
moment. When
yeah.
even though in that whole moment is like, but I'm your thought. Like, and that was a sweet moment.
It was very sweet. That was, we had to really keep that secret. That was like, if they know he's in the film, oh my God. Anyway, yeah, that was so sweet. I love that scene. And he's so good in it. They're both so good.
So is that one of your secrets in life? I always cast Harrison Ford.
Yeah, that's my other advice. When in doubt, cast Harrison. He's your guy.
Well, actually, what I like, I know he complained originally in the original trilogy, he thought Han Solo's character wasn't developed as well. That's his original complaint of the first 3 episodes, why he wanted to be killed off. It was nice that you guys gave him a lot of, like, he had a really three-dimensional, interesting character.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it was like you
I'm
gave him
glad
back what he
yeah.
really wanted, that a moment, Han dying, give it meaning,
Yeah.
not just, a
Well,
thought trick.
it's so interesting because, that was the very beginning of his career. And, there's so many films between then and now. I mean, as an actor, he, just developed so incredibly. Like, he's one of those actors, whenever you see him on screen, he makes you smile. They're not that, I know there are other actors and you're like, oh, that so-and-so's in that film, that's great, I'll watch it. But like, I genuinely feel when I see Harrison Ford on the screen, it makes me smile. Yeah.
I've met a lot of celebrities in my job. I met him. It was the only one I couldn't make eye contact with. I was just so intimidated. Like, this is Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones, and Han Solo, and I just totally, I don't know why he's a fanboy. I was like a 5-year-old child. Like, do you know excited this for me? It was just...
I bet. I can't imagine.
Now, you've obviously done a ton of movies with JJ. What is special about him, working with him? As a lot of directors, what do you love about him that maybe student film directors say, you know what, you should be like that, you should adopt that kind of
Well, one
approach?
thing I will say about him, everyone likes him. So when you go on a set, the set is, everyone on the set, everyone on the crew wants to do a good job for him. He's very charismatic, he's very funny, and he's very personable. So he takes time to meet everyone, and he'll tell a joke, or he'll tell you a story, or he cares about what you have to say. He listens. But I think for me, because I started so early with him, so I was on Alias when he kind of, which, by the way, if any of you have the time to see the Alias pilot, it is so good. I watched it like a year ago, and I was like, this is the best pilot I've ever seen. It's so good. So he just has all these great ideas, and then it makes you have great ideas. And so Alias was incredibly ambitious, like crazy ambitious. Like, you want the motorcycle to do what? Go off a cliff, and then she jumps off it and it parachutes in. What? This is television, how are we gonna, So it was just, he taught me a lot about how to think big and how to think you can make, if it makes sense in the story, you can make it happen. And, you know, just also being open to my ideas and helping me, like, I did, you know, if I'd go to him on Alias and say, hey, you know, I think we're missing this one scene, and he, you know, 10 minutes later he'd say, okay, Maryann, there'll be a camera crew in the garage at Disney, and, you know, Jennifer will be there, and Bradley will be there, and just go shoot it. And I was like, okay. So there's just like, we were in the trenches together, and as the years went on, I just admired the way his mind worked, and a lot of it is that, you know, it's really hard work, and it's really long hours, and you're gonna wanna be with someone you like and someone who's funny. That's like the key to the whole thing. I remember we once, I think it was Star Trek, I made it, Steven Spielberg came in to see a version of the movie, and it was just him alone in the theater, and we had worked like, I don't know, 48 hours straight. I was so tired. And Steven sat down, he said, is there anything I should know? And I was like, no, you're gonna love it. You don't even need to take notes. And it was a joke. And then I left, and then 3 hours later, JJ calls me, and he's like, did you tell Steven not to take notes? And I was like, did I? He could not have possibly taken me seriously. And he said, he took you seriously. And so that was what it was like. I was like, okay, I'm firing myself.
Well, sadly, it's all the time we have tonight, so I want to thank Maryann Brandon for sharing her insights into Star Wars. Thank you so much.
Thank you for loving Star Wars. I do.